I always feel like somebody's watching me. But they don't have to be. Head over to nordvpn.com/TYT right now for 75% off of 3 years of military-grade encryption for up to 6 of your devices. And I promise I'll never sing again.
$15, that's not enough, Brian, for some people.
What do you mean?
Some want $20 an hour. Have you heard about this story?
I have.
That's Fox and Friends outraged over the fact that Representative Rashida Tlaib believes that a $15 an hour minimum wage is not enough to take care of a family in most parts of the country. And she's actually right about that, especially when you take inflation and the cost of food into account. It has rapidly outpaced wages in America. And the dismissive nature of Fox and Friends is so incredibly insulting. And you're about to get a sense of how disconnected they really are from the American people, the average American. Let's go to the next clip.
Like many of you, I've had about 5 to 7 tip jobs. Well, I started as a busboy. I used to do a bus, clear the tables, and we used to rotate washing the dishes. And at the end of the day, you pool your tips. It's one of the best jobs you can have when you're breaking in. You don't even expect that check. It's almost a surprise when you get a $60 or $70 check at the end of the week because you work hard, you get great tips, and if you're good, guess what? Other restaurants want you. They will take you off of your better jobs. And if your one job doesn't pay enough, guess what you do? You get another job. That's what you do in your 20s. Having 2 jobs, part-time jobs while going to school is something people have done since the turn of the last century. And now all of a sudden people want to make that job something you can make a career out of while destroying small businesses. And those owners work about 60 hours a week.
This is so ridiculous.
So he's concerned about the workers getting paid more than the CEOs or the executives of companies, which you don't have to worry about that happening, especially in America, where the wealth and income disparity between executives versus employees is outrageous and out of control, and will continue to be so because of that kind of thinking. But hey, you know what? Kilmeade has worked, 5 or 7 tip jobs at some point, maybe, kind of. And if you work really, really hard, and you're really, really nice, other restaurant employers will maybe hire you and pay you more. That's the way it works, right? Maybe one day you could even be in broadcast news.
Right, and these 3 are making at least hundreds of thousands of dollars. I bet one of them is making in the 7 figures.
Doocy and Kilmeade are definitely millionaires.
Yeah.
Exactly, and
100%.
It's not because of the level of hard work.
No.
It's because of the value that they bring just as people, and that's fine. I'm fine with that because the corporation as a whole is making way more money off of them. That's fine, but I work in TV. And there are days, a lot of days where we consider this really hard work. It is, it's physically draining, it's mentally draining. Sometimes it's nothing like when I worked at Burger King. It's nothing.
Well,
those jobs are physically, emotionally, the way people talk to you, the way people treat you. You are not getting paid enough. That job is 100 times harder.
Yes.
And I promise you that your TV job is 100 times harder than Brian Kilmeade's job.
Right,
because Brian Kilmeade and Steve Doocy are two of the dumbest people in America who are making millions and millions of dollars because it's super easy to just go out there and bloviate whatever, it doesn't matter. You actually put in the work, you look up the facts, you develop coherent opinions. If you could just go up there and just talk crap, that's easy.
Right, she said $15 isn't enough. Would you believe that? I guarantee you that they have had contract negotiations exactly where 500, 600,000 wasn't enough. Like, get 100%. Over yourself. Why? Where do you have to be in life to talk down at people like that? $15 isn't enough, and it's not because people just feel like they're better than that. It's because it literally is not enough to pay for a typical rent, to buy a new coat when you need one, to pay for your medicine, to eat 3 times a day.
To pay for schooling for your kids.
To pay for transportation to even get them to that schooling.
Yes.
It's literally not enough. It's not because people are just like, I deserve more. It's just, they actually are working full time and cannot afford to eat 3 times a day.
It is pretty incredible because if people are living in poverty, they make assumptions about them being lazy or not working hard enough. If people have full-time jobs and they're not getting paid fairly for the work that they're doing, they'll just straight out say that they don't deserve to get paid more, right? I mean, if you're working a full-time job in America, you should be, especially when you consider the profits of all these major corporations.
All-time high. Corporate profits are an all-time high.
Exactly, and they get all these like tax benefits and these subsidies. And like, you never hear an intelligent conversation about wage increases. So they mentioned the Congressional Budget Office and how that one report indicated that yes, it will lift a lot of people out of poverty if you pay them $15 an hour, but some jobs will be lost as a result of that. And small businesses would disproportionately get hurt through increasing wages. And that is something that should be acknowledged. But instead of subsidizing oil companies or subsidizing these massive corporations that are already doing well and certainly can afford to pay their workers more, why don't we subsidize small businesses and help them grow to the point where they can afford to pay their workers $15 an hour, right? Subsidies should go to small companies in America, but they never do. There's all this talk about-
Or directly to workers.
Right, or directly to workers.
Who are laid off. Yeah.
How those subsidies work, that is a debate that should happen, but it never happens. We never talk about how the wrong companies and the wrong people get subsidized in this country, and it's disgusting. So I want to go to the next clip. This is one of the dumbest statements I've ever heard when it comes to this debate. Take a look.
If you're working at a McDonald's or a small little restaurant where you're making tips, you're right. If you're nice to the people, you make a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So what do you?
Other restaurants can hear about you and they want you.
Correct.
Nobody gets tipped at McDonald's. Also, nobody's making that much money in tips. When people who make good tips, when they talk about great tips, it's still not what you'd think. Well, it's great proportionate to what they could be making.
Right.
But nobody is ever excited. If you are excited about getting a $60 check at the end of the week, that's a problem because you know that's not a bonus. You know that they're not making enough money.
Also, the whole tipping thing, the fact that businesses can get away with it with paying less than minimum wage by justifying it on the basis of the workers getting tipped is just a way to pass on wages to the consumer rather than forcing the business to pay the wage. And what it does, the effect that it does, not just in the immediate interaction between the consumer and the worker, but just generally in the society, is that it pits people against each other. Because it creates a dynamic in these social interactions. Like if you go to a restaurant where the consumer kind of is almost has the server by the throat, right? It's like you have to bend to my every will, or because the implicit threat is then you won't get a good tip,
right?
Which is part of their, in theory, basic wage.
It is. That's what's so frustrating about when people talk about, well, if you're nicer, you get good tips. People in America still don't even understand the system. In other countries, people who come in from a lot of other countries are like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I have to pay on
It's
top
absurd.
of this? People still don't understand that tipping is not dependent on whether or not your server was nice to you. That is literally 20% of that is the cost of your meal. And if you can't afford to eat and tip 20% of your meal, you cannot afford to go out to eat because in America, your tip is actually, it should be, that's how the system works. You're paying for another part of going out to eat. It's not because they were super nice. If you want to tip 40%, go for it. But even if your server is nasty to you, I feel like everyone still has to tip 20%. Because I have a bad attitude at work some days too, but that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna be able to eat when I get home.
Yeah, I totally
because I had a headache or because people didn't think I was nice or because I was black.
Yeah.
And they didn't feel like that person deserved to be tipped, which still happens. This is insane.
It is insane. And I wanted to just add one more thing about the conversation that they had on that panel. So earlier, Steve Doocy was like, I didn't know this, but restaurant workers,
yeah, they get paid $2 an hour.
They're only paid $2.13 an hour, and they really get paid by these tips. And I bring that up because it shows you, based on what Ainsley said in that clip about tipped fast food workers and what Doocy said about, I didn't know that they only got paid $2.13 an hour. They're so disconnected from the realities facing Americans today. And they're supposed to be informing people. Like they're supposed to be having an analytical discussion about policy here.
They should know that obviously he's clearly never had a serving job, but he should know that just because of his job.
Yeah.
Because that small amount is based on laws.
I don't think he's
in
ever
those
had
states.
a fast food job.
He doesn't even know how money works.
Yeah.
They don't know how a lot of things work. And look, I don't usually do this in the middle of our stories, but I do want to read some of our member comments as they're coming in live. So we have Yevi Cash writing in saying, really, Fox? Wow, I'd love to see how the hosts on Fox take home $15 an hour and get back to us.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree. It would be wonderful for them to, not for a week where they play these cute little games and like, oh, I'm gonna play homeless or I'm gonna play an average
3 months,
American.
at least.
No, a year. I want them to see what it's like to bring in that measly income after doing all that hard work for a full year, and then I want to hear what their analysis is.
The truth is, though, it won't matter because they are making so much money that they are able to live for a year in those expensive apartments or homes in the suburbs in the state of New York or wherever they're living. Because they've already have so much money.
They do, exactly. So if you are not a member and you want to write into us and share your comments, you can always do so by becoming a member. Go to tyt.com/join. Members help to keep us afloat, especially at this time when all these social media platforms and YouTube, Facebook, they're demonetizing everything. So check us out again. tyt.com/join.
Well, hey, you made it this far. You must really like the Young Turks. Thank you. We really appreciate you. Now, another easy way to keep supporting us also helps keep your internet activities and data private, all with a push of the NordVPN app. Head to nordvpn.com/tyt right now for 75% off of your next 3 years.